Well, we're back. Joanne and Jimmy Moriarty. It's been really just a week since our last conversation. We're in another undisclosed location here. And the story that you two have told is just absolutely riveting. I think it's important for everyone in America to hear it. After our first interview, there, of course, are people now who have come forward questioning your story, doubting that you were even in Libya, doubting things that you've told me, things that you've said elsewhere. But you guys have presented in a variety of different forums quite a bit of evidence. You've spoken about missiles that you're aware of being transported to Libya. You've spoken about incidents surrounding the attack on the CIA compound in Benghazi. You've spoken about your meeting with Cynthia McKinney, former Congresswoman. Why don't we start with that? Joanne, what was that meeting? How did that come about, the meeting with Cynthia McKinney?
When we were in Libya in 2011, I think it was probably in May or June of 2011, Cynthia McKinney was in Libya there for a couple of weeks with a camera crew. We didn't know her, but the Libyan government asked us if we would introduce her to some people because they were dealing with the attack on the country. And they didn't have time to show her around, and she wasn't getting much traction. So we took her, we introduced her to the head of all the tribes.
They actually asked us if we would introduce her to the tribes and introduce her to some of the, I'm going to call them personalities in Libya.
A professor from a university.
Yeah.
So let me take a step back. You guys were acquainted with the government of Libya. How did that come about?
On our first trip in there, January 1st, 2007, we went in there to take a look-see of if Libya was even any place we could do business. And I took 4 security guys with us. They were the size of Dallas Cowboy linebackers.
And you guys were quite successful in business at this point, very wealthy.
We had rejuvenated 7,000 wells worldwide, less than 100 failures. We don't have any peers to this day for our technology.
And can you talk about, for people who are doubting this, these companies that you had, can you mention the company? People?
We didn't. Well, there were actually two companies, American Petroleum Consortium and Libyan American Consortium. And those two companies were formed actually after we signed the first contract in Libya, because there had been one of the conditions of the Treaty of 2006 that Condoleezza Rice signed with Gaddafi, and that treaty is a part of record. Anybody go read it. They formed a for-profit joint venture corporation between the United States and Libya. And the United States was going to qualify companies to come into Libya to help them build it, expand their business, bring new technologies and everything to them, because Libya had been blocked. They'd been sanctioned from all new technologies in the oil and gas industry for sure for 38 years.
Right.
And their production had gone from oil production from 3.8 million barrels of oil a day down to 900,000 barrels a day.
Wow.
That's what we do. We cure those kinds of problems. We rejuvenate oil wells, and we do it with a very high-tech medical grade DNA manipulation of microbes.
Wow.
We take this piece of this microbe, this piece of this one, put them together, kill all the living portion off. They're waterborne, but they're not pressure sensitive and they're not temperature sensitive because there's nothing living there. So they're really an enzyme that does all kinds of neat things to oil.
Wow.
We clean up pipelines, sludge pits. We can absolutely clean chicken fat off your knives better than anything else. But
you should get an infomercial.
That's what he's doing.
Oil. We don't cut off the tail of the hydrocarbon chain, but we absolutely make oil more flowable. So the ion that makes it sticky around the outside of the oil, we remove that.
And so this was a technology that you had developed or that you had licensed from somewhere?
No, we actually bought it from some medical doctors that were trying to take fat out of the human body. They couldn't control the microbes that did it, but since they had identified that microbe, our partner was the first black academic to Rice University, and he had a degree in petroleum engineering and a degree in reservoir engineering. He was a math specialist, but We went up to Canada, met with those guys. They didn't want anything to do with it. They
Why?
said because they were afraid of it. They
They
could see
couldn't-
the lawsuits
They
coming
couldn't
in.
control it. You can't live without fat in your body, in the brain. And
Oh, for human medical
Yeah,
applications.
if a human, they had no way to control it inside
So
the
it
human
would go
body.
crazy and kill
Yeah.
the patient.
It would take all the fat out of the
But
body.
for an oil well, it's perfect.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You can stick your hand inside our enzyme, take it out, wash it off. It'll take you a week to get enough oil back in your skin where it feels right.
Wow.
It's amazing stuff. But
And it's environmentally friendly.
and so we couldn't get paid properly out of China. We looked at Libya as a new market, so we went in there really to take a look-see. And after the first 2 days, like I said, we sent our security teams home. We were safer walking on the streets in Tripoli than we were anywhere in Houston.
Right.
And so after a few more days, we met with the national oil company there, told them what we want to do. They were real excited, and they said, we want to get a contract with y'all to rejuvenate a bunch of our wells. We said, great. So they said, in the meantime, we have some other people in the government would like to meet with you to find out how business is done in the Western world. They liked us. They trusted us.
And you were
So-
bringing a revolutionary technology to them,
Right.
obviously.
And
but-
interestingly enough, the Libyans, and people talk about Muslim countries, women can't do anything. Well, Libya was open to women. I mean, Gaddafi had emancipated women in the 70s. And because Jimmy and I do our sales together, they actually trust women more than they do men.
Wow.
So because I was in the meetings, it was much more amenable to us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
And so they asked us to stay longer. We'd only planned to stay 4 or 5 days. They asked us to stay longer because there were a lot of ministers, cabinet level ministers, that wanted to meet with us. So we met with those guys in the evening after they'd finished their regular business. We'd meet with them at 5 or 6 in the evening. The meetings might go on till 2 or 3 in the morning. And this went day after day. We stayed there an extra 10 days, I guess. We postponed our meeting with the petroleum minister in Egypt, you know, to meet with those guys, and they were all real nice. When we said, we've got to go, they said, we want to sign a contract with you. And we signed a contract to rejuvenate 2,500 monster wells. This was at least $600 million worth of our product, maybe as much as $1 billion. That does not include all the in-field costs to take the well apart, clean it up, put it back together. So it was a huge contract.
So we were
You never-
proactive.
You never
do business.
sign that kind of a contract out of the barrel. We signed it, the Libyans signed it on behalf of that joint venture company, the U.S. joint venture company.
Right.
Then we went back to the United States to get it signed by the U.S. signatory, who's president of a CPA firm about 30 miles north of New York City.
Huh.
Went in there, one-story building. His name was Kevin. I can't remember his last name. We were told all.
Francis.
Yeah,
Kevin Francis.
And when we went into he's the president of the CPA firm. Went into the front door, the reception there working on our computer. We said, we have a meeting with Kevin Francis. She looked at us like, who's that? She said, Kevin Francis? Yeah. So she goes to the back, and in about 5 minutes, this older lady comes out, and she looks around the corner and says, oh yeah, come back here. So we're taken back to an office in the back, and here's a guy working off of a laptop with a little plastic file down
Sitting
here.
down to the side.
Perfectly good computer up here, and he
That's
said,
the
computers don't
president.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the president.
yeah.
And he asked Joanne, he said, do you mind giving us some coffee? She said no. He didn't know where the coffee pot was. So whenever, he didn't want to sign a contract. He wanted to know who we were, how in the heck did we get into Libya?
Without his approval.
How could they sign that contract? It all had been approved on this end. You know, what kind of bond you going to put up, all these things? Well, that's already done. The Libyans are happy with it, so why don't you sign? Right. Well, we've got to have meetings about this, you know. Don't call us, we'll call you. When we left, I told Joanne, I said, that guy absolutely is a spy for somebody, because if the secretary doesn't know him, and he doesn't know where the coffee pot is in his
He's
own
the president
company,
of the company.
and it was about a 1,500 square foot freestanding one-story building. He doesn't work off the computer. He said that one didn't work. The secretary's worked fine. And he's working off a little plastic file folder, you know, please. So the Libyans called us after that meeting. They said, what about, did you get the contract signed? I said, no, you all have a problem. I said, this company's not going to be sending you any legitimate companies to do business with you. They're going to send you their companies.
CIA companies.
Yes. And they said, well, we know you, we met you, we've broken bread with you. We'll authorize you to sign the other part of the contract. I said, we can't sign both sides. And the contract be valid.
Who can sign both sides of the contract?
I said, I'll give you some names of some good attorneys that I know. No, we can't do that. So they said, go meet our guy in London. Okay. He's one of our best experts in this area. So we met him, really very nice guy. He said, what can we do? And I said, for me, I would hope that you could have the choice of companies that were really going to be best for your country. So I'd form a new corporation. I said, I don't think you're ever going to get a valid company through that vehicle.
That weird accounting office.
So, well, through the joint venture, U.S.-Libyan joint venture company.
So why did they set that up? Why did Condoleezza
So that they could bring CIA companies into Libya. So
and spy on Libya.
Yeah. Well, no, to soak up all the business. You know, that's the way they do it with foreign corporations. Never benefits the people of the United States, the foreign corporations that own all the intelligence agencies and everybody else. You know, they're the ones, that's their modus operandi. Like they did in Iraq and like they've done every place.
So Halliburton gets all the business in Iraq, and whoever this guy, whatever his name is, with the plastic files is sending businesses into Libya.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's a CPA.
And his partner was an ex-ambassador from Italy. Yeah. He was an older guy.
Well, Italy has had a lot of influence in Libya, right?
It's a real sad history, what they did to Italy, or what they did to Libya.
They took the Libyan population down to a couple 100,000 back in the 1920s. They annihilated almost everybody. And Mussolini was trying to take the country over, and they were fighting in the desert style, you know, the nomads and everybody. And they went and put razor wire across the desert. The first concentration camps were put there by Mussolini to kill the Libyans.
Wow.
Because they wouldn't
If you go and watch Lion of the Desert, there was a movie made about the story of Omar Mukhtar and how he fought the Italians. For 10 years they couldn't win. So they went in and just tried to do a complete genocide, and they ended up with 250,000 left. Wow. And then Italy took over the country and just owned it. They owned olive orchards, and they were barons, you know, and the Libyans were never allowed to own the land. They were just the slaves.
But Libya has been occupied beginning back
thousands
8,000 years. The Romans occupied Libya.
The Ottoman Empire.
The biggest Roman city in the world was in Libya.
Leptis Magna.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So you've got your technology. You're working on this contract. Did the guy in London facilitate it?
No, he said, can you form the corporations for us? We'd really like to have U.S. company. I said, yeah. So we found out in was it Montana? Wyoming. At that time, they allowed bearer shares and foreign ownership.
Bearer shares?
Bearer.
Oh.
Bearer shares, foreign ownership. So the Libyans could own that corporation. We said, we will form the corporation for you. It'll be Libyan. We'll be a part of it. Oh, great, if you'll do that for us. Well, we started that process, and a couple of weeks later, they said, well, can you do two corporations? One for the oil and gas industry and one for everything else. Yeah.
This took us a long time.
We're proactive because we've already got this huge contract down there, you know. And then they said, well, can you bring in companies that are interested in good contracts in Libya like the U.S. government was promising to do?
So let me get this straight. You guys started a U.S. corporation that's owned by the Libyans.
Two of them.
And then that would allow you to transact business in Libya.
Right.
Clever business dealings through lawyers and stuff within the context of the law.
Right.
We started researching the Libyan laws, and the beautiful part about their structure was if you did all your paperwork properly, a foreign company could actually become a Libyan company. And the beautiful part about that is the Libyan laws required that the government have 100% of the money in a bank account before they could sign a contract. So if you signed a contract with the Libyan government, you were going to get paid, period.
Wow. It's kind of the opposite.
No place else. Yeah. No place else.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of foreign businesses that I've done business with.
Paperwork was really difficult. Secretary of State had to notarize each page, then that had to
The
go
U.S. Secretary,
Yeah.
who was Hillary Clinton.
No, in
First
your-
it
in
was
your
the state
your local
secretary.
CPA, then the state, local notary.
No, local notary.
Secretary of State in the state, U.S. Secretary of State, then a translation by an official recognized Libyan translator. They put 2 stamps on it, then it went to the Libyan consulate there, and they put a $300 fee to put their stamp.
Okay.
And you had to have 2 sets of original manuals times 11. Each one of the ministries got 2 originals, no copies.
Took us a long
Cost
time.
us $600,000 to get the paperwork together for those 2 corporations.
But you're really painting a picture for us here of obviously a very sophisticated business person. This does not sound like a story that you're making up.
No.
Everything that you're saying people could check. People
Yeah.
could check the laws, records of corporations. There's no hesitation in what you're telling me.
No.
I
This
still
was the
believe you
deal.
guys.
Everything was shut down. In 2011, everything was shut
And we
down.
started
What do
inviting.
you mean everything was shut
Everything, all bank accounts in Libya were taken. All the Libyan
By who?
people. It was
US,
either.
UN, NATO.
Yeah,
About
it'd have to
that.
be US, UN, NATO. Whoever broke in, discovered these accounts, whoever took over the country, and that would be UN and NATO, and the US and UK and all of them. All the Libyans, we know a number of Libyans who had bank accounts. All the bank accounts were taken. Our bank accounts were taken. Everybody's bank account disappeared in Libya, was taken from them.
Wow.
They just disappeared. Under the Treaty of 2006, Libya had to invest all of its money in the U.S. and Europe. So the Federal Reserve had $241 billion in cash and cash equivalents from Libya, $150 billion in European Central Bank.
So this
That
is where
money, all that disappeared. The first week of this phony revolution, they assigned over the title to all that money to the rebels, who were mercenaries of the CIA and
it's
Mossad.
the central bank that controls the SWIFT network and international bank payments. They just said, we don't like these guys, we're taking all their money.
This is a country, we don't like the story, whatever it may be, whether snipers shot somebody, whether they didn't. This is a humanitarian thing. We're freezing all their funds. This is how they attack countries anyway. They attack them financially. That's what they do to Iraq. That's what they did to Iraq. Nobody can buy weapons because their funds are frozen.
The U.S. Infects a country by financial demise from day one. They demonetize their currency. They eliminate the possibility of anybody that we're attacking to buy weapons, buy food, buy anything. That's an economic warfare that we have been conducting in 80 countries in the last 70 or so years.
And we've seen that tactic trickle down,
Yeah.
even
Oh, yeah.
to people in social media. Alex Jones, we hear
Sure.
about PayPal,
Yeah.
defunding people. The lawsuits against Crowdsource the Truth are attempting to attack financially. You guys here in the United States now have had all your bank accounts. So this is really the #1 out of the gate tactic.
Yeah.
Sure, because you're strapped then. What are you going to do?
Right.
You know, you have no resources to fight back with.
But you know, the thing that happened since we had that first contract, and we're back and forth to Libya, we traveled into Libya 17 times. We were there never less than 30 days and many, many times 90 days. We traveled all over the country, and almost every time we went back to Libya, we got another contract. We got a contract to clean up their tanks. We got a contract to clean up their sludge pits. The first time we met the Environmental Protection Agency over there, it was in a closet-sized office.
They had just started.
They kept expanding it, and we got signed huge contracts, memorandum of understanding with them.
There were lakes of oil in the desert left by the oil companies. They're supposed to clean those up when
Never
they
did. You
when
can
they
see
drill
them.
new oil wells. See, all this oil comes out, and they leave these lakes.
the fracking fluid.
It's the fluid, and some of the lakes were so big they had waves on them.
Wow.
You see them from satellites.
Gaddafi called them. I have pictures of those somewhere. Gaddafi called them scars on the desert.
Wow.
And they started a fund. The oil companies are supposed to put funds in place to clean those up. They never did. But Gaddafi started funds that, I don't know if it was Gaddafi, but the Libyan government started funds to clean those up. but they didn't have anybody who could clean them up. They had an Italian company come in and say they could suck out all the oil.
Here's something else. Because of the lack of sophistication by the Libyans, every foreign company that came in there to drill, produce, rejuvenate, whatever they did, using old technologies, they never let the Libyan National Oil Company have any of the records of what they were doing.
Huh.
They had to believe and trust
Wow.
all the oil and gas companies, who were all, they're like mafia also, you know. But that was another thing they couldn't have gotten away with in a country that was more sophisticated and had more expertise in that industry. But the thing that was amazing, their production zones, their big zone was 1,200 feet thick and their little zone was 600 feet thick.
What's a zone in Texas?
Oh, if you got 15 feet, you're lucky, you know. Some wells here, 2 foot, foot and a half, you know.
That's the depth of it?
That's the thickness.
The zone where you get the
I'm
oil
talking
out.
about the thickness of the oil.
Yeah.
Oil doesn't sit in a lake. It's inside sand and stuff like that, you know, and you have to go through all kind of machinations to get it to pool so you can lift it. But you don't have a zone 1,200 feet anywhere. You can go to the Permian Basin, the biggest oil and gas production place in the United States. They wouldn't even think about ever having one that thick.
And you've spoken in other interviews about the vast resources in Libya, the copper, the gold. It's just an area of the world.
Bauxite,
Silica.
huge.
Iron
Pure
ore.
silica. They have a very rich iron ore, huge deposit in Green Mountain area. It's 55%. 45% is way commercial, you know. 55% is a gold mine. 100% pure silica. That's what is used by the computer industry.
Right.
2 huge gold deposits. One of them they fought with for ownership for over 30 years. Egypt was trying to claim it. The Sudan was trying to claim it.
It's in the corner of Egypt, Sudan, and Libya, down in the south of Libya.
And it's an outcropping in the desert.
So this is an area of the world that is rich in natural resources.
Yes, absolutely.
and
And not a big
attractive.
population.
And attractive to internationally.
The Mediterranean's got a huge front of the Mediterranean, pristine, you know, 6.5 million people. Libya is the 4th largest country in Africa, 17th largest in the world, and a very, very tiny population, and all these natural resources.
So you guys are there, you've established these relationships, you've got a unique technology that's going to help them rejuvenate their industry, and so you're there. Cynthia McKinney comes, what's her purpose there?
She was there during the fighting, during the NATO blow-up.
When the so-called Arab Spring started, she showed up over there in May or June of that. It started in February. And so she was over there in May or June with her cameras. She had a camera crew with her.
But to do what? Make a TV show?
I don't know for sure.
She wrote a book about it.
She wrote a book about Libya, yeah. And we met her there and got to know her a little bit and talked to her. You know, it was, we didn't spend a lot of time with her because we were going places with this fact-finding commission and stuff, and she was doing her own filming somewhere. She actually filmed an interview of us.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Have you seen that interview?
Never.
See, it's interesting because I don't want to make this about situations happening to me, but I alerted Cynthia McKinney that she was becoming involved in a fraud with this unrigged campaign. And you would think that a respectable congresswoman, former congresswoman, PhD, if someone contacts you and tells you they have evidence that you're becoming involved in a fraud, you'd at least want to hear about it.
Yes.
And she ignored a text message, a Twitter direct message, a Facebook message that she acknowledged to a Crowdsource the Truth viewer that she had seen, and she proceeded to work with this unrigged campaign, which has essentially admitted to committing felony charity fraud. So I'm very suspicious of Cynthia McKinney. And she has spread this notion that everyone in Congress pledges an allegiance to Israel. We've discussed this
She
before.
told us that. She said she and Ron Paul were the only ones that ever signed that. And
That
that everybody
did not
else,
sign
I mean,
it.
that did not sign it. Everybody else had signed it.
What evidence did she provide?
She didn't provide any.
But
This is her.
when we asked her for evidence, she delivered to us some documents about what they do in London, what the Brits do, and they do have a quasi Israel first kind of a document.
Yeah,
and
it's
I'll
not a-
deliver
it's not
copies
a-
of that to you. But
yeah.
But London is obviously not
not
Congress.
the U.S.
No.
either.
And certainly you guys are not government officials.
No,
You're not
no.
military personnel. You're civilians. So
That's
if
exactly
a
right.
member of Congress tells you something, that's firsthand testimony from someone who.
You would trust, or you
Who
would think
should
they
know.
should know, yeah.
I can promise
So
you.
she lied to you, basically. Cynthia McKinney lied to you.
We have no talents in the spycraft area because we're business people. You know, we know what
I
we
think
know.
you've got more talents in the spycraft area than you're giving yourself credit for, Jimmy.
Well,
Not
you
one
know,
of those things you research, but it kind of sits in your lap, you know, it just kind of comes and sits
you
in your
have
lap.
to learn when they put us in this position. The things that we know, before the Libyan tribes ever delivered any intel to us, they verified it 3 times and they delivered it to us. Jerome Corsi has written more than 50 articles based on the information that Joanne's provided him. I don't know, more than 50. They also provide us documents. At least one of those documents was read in the congressional record. We've got 2 more that we think were, but we don't know for sure. But the Libyan tribes appointed us as their official spokespersons. If we had never gone to Libya, that's a pretty good stretch. That's in our
We have
DVD.
the document, yeah.
But we were in Libya
Let's
many,
remind
many
people, I'm
times.
sorry to
Okay.
interrupt, Jimmy, but let's remind people how they can get that DVD.
It's at LibyanWarTheTruth.com. That's our website.
People are ordering that DVD from you, and it's important that people go there to LibyanWarTheTruth.com
Right.
because you two have been completely robbed of any other source of income.
And
Now,
blocked, and
blocked.
soft-killed, and blacklisted. We
Right.
exist off that little DVD.
And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that anyone would, forego all of this business experience that you obviously have, access to unique technologies, to sit in their house and sell a $15 DVD.
It's not even our house.
Yeah.
We had to sell our houses, sold our antique car collection. We were basically homeless. And we have had our bank accounts taken, our business shut down, alienated from our friends and family, other business associates we had. They've had permits pulled, they've had for 17 years. You know, it's really a complete destruction of our lives because we are eyewitnesses to war crimes and atrocities committed by the U.S., UN, and NATO in Libya.
And we have knowledge that it was all started by a false flag or a lie,
Right.
that there was no revolution in Libya.
There's a plethora of information on our DVD and CD, and there's a whole lot more information that they have attacked us, and they've raided our house. They've done all kinds of things trying to find the 240 gigabytes of evidence that we recorded ourselves in Libya. And Joanne secreted out on her person, and she got through customs and everything in Houston.
Well,
they're looking for it
yeah.
in my luggage, and she's already out the
No,
door with it.
I secreted it down here. It was a little hard drive, you know.
Wow.
And we took our computers with us, but when we were captured by Al Qaeda, we were trying to leave the country. They took everything, and so what we got, these mercenaries, whatever they are.
I hope you've backed this up.
Yeah,
It's secreted in a lot of places.
they don't touch women
Yeah.
Unless they're gonna
rape them or kill them.
Jeez.
And so they didn't touch me, and I didn't speak Arabic, so I didn't. Prince Hashel was with us, the Bahraini prince, and the sister of the president of Mauritania who was with us. They were, sitting there frozen like this. We were not scared because we didn't. First of all, we didn't understand what they were saying, and Jimmy was saying we're American citizens. You need to, respect
I
our.
said, we've been supporting you. America's been supporting you all forever. You need to let us go.
So you guys basically just didn't even realize how much danger you were in.
No, not until the very end, where we were trying to get we were there for, I don't know, 36 hours. I don't know how long we were there.
2 days
It was
inside
the Mahari Hotel, the Radisson Blue that was there. They'd taken it over as their torture center.
And that's the hotel where you witnessed Black Hawk helicopters.
No.
Different hotel.
That was after that was before that. When they invaded Tripoli, and what triggered that is one of the conditions that the UN kept bringing forward. The Libyans have to have a constitution. They have to be able to vote. They already had a constitution, but they rewrote one. And we were sitting with Sheikh Ali, who was the supreme leader of all the tribes.
Sheikh Ali Alahwel is his name.
And we were sitting with him when they brought the new Constitution. He holds it up and he points at it. There's a picture of him in our DVD pointing to that new Constitution, and he said, now then the fighting will stop. Here's our new Constitution. It was 2 days later they invaded Tripoli nonstop, and we were on the 21st floor of the Corinthia Hotel, looking out over the Mediterranean, and all of a sudden these 2 Black Hawk helicopters come in real low off the Mediterranean. We could see these 2, and we heard the third one's their mini cannons running full stop, mowing down every man on the
It's a real distinct sound. It's a bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
like that. You know that cannon sound.
This is really shocking. I mean, this is essentially what Chelsea Manning showed in Iraq when he or she released that footage of them shooting
People in the streets.
journalists.
Yeah.
So they're just, this is pure
This is
terror tactics.
1,300 people died in an hour on the
Were
streets
killed.
of Tripoli. Were
killed.
killed, and 5,000 were wounded.
in the first hour of this attack.
Wow.
They did this to eliminate any resistance that was left in Tripoli because the invasion was about to start. And a couple of days after they were doing this, then in comes these trucks nonstop off the port, little pickup trucks with anti-aircraft guns on the back, 4
I have my
Al-Qaeda or
own
whatever
pictures of those.
inside, nonstop. They're coming out of the port on these car carriers.
It's hard for me to reconcile this notion that U.S. airmen would fly these helicopters and murder
This
civilians.
is the problem I had. I said, how are these guys, even though they're working for NATO or whoever it is, how do they go in and just shoot people?
That's what
how
I mean.
How do they bomb hospitals? How do they bomb schools? How do they
Right.
bomb food supplies, water supplies? How do
Right.
they get into their mind?
Apartments, the Great Man-Made River, the factory that built these huge aqueducts for the Great Man-Made River.
It's hard to
And
believe.
the terrible
It is.
part about it, this was in the summer. Libya is the same latitude as Houston, and it lays right above
Very
the
hot.
Sahara. It is hot.
Yeah.
And if you don't have your air conditioners running, you're going to melt.
Right.
So the planes bombed power plants. So the air conditioners didn't work. If you didn't have a backup generator, you were
Well,
going
the
to melt.
food
Now,
would rot.
we know this because the head of the bank in there in Tripoli knew Jimmy was a ex-banker. He used to be a banker, and called us in and they said, "Is there anything you can do? We have these power plants, but we need the parts to fix them, but we can't buy
Here's the
any
list of
parts.
parts.
We can't buy all our funds are frozen." And they told us at the UN that if we applied for humanitarian reasons, that they released some funds, but he said they won't even respond to us. He said, "Can you do anything to help us?"
They
And-
said, here's an account at our embassy in Berlin. They haven't been confiscated. So we made the application to the company for the parts for the power plants. The next day after we made the application, that money was locked up.
Wow.
The
They
other
just
thing-
forgot about it
Yeah.
until you brought it
Yeah.
to their
Right.
attention.
So the other thing that they did, all the civilian cars in Libya were gasoline powered. The military vehicles were diesel powered. Gasoline was blockaded,
Embargoed from
embargoed
Tripoli.
from Libya. Gasoline.
From Tripoli, and they embargoed food, they embargoed medicine, they embargoed water. People were driving to Tunisia 4 or 5 hours to pick up water. They waited in line 4 days sometimes to get gasoline. These are crimes against humanity. These are international war crimes.
And to let you know the scope of this, there were 6.5 million Libyans before. There's 1 million less now.
The U.S. and NATO and the
Killed
UN
a
killed.
million men, women, children, and soldiers. But 1 million.
So there were 6.5 million. Now there's 5.5.
And
And
of the
still a lot of
5.5,
them are in exile.
At one time, there were more than 2 million in exile. A lot of them living in refugee camps and things like that. Just horrible conditions. And inside Libya, when they invaded Tripoli, they turned over Libya to the to the CIA, Mossad, MI6 mercenaries. Said you can do whatever you want with that place.
They just let them rape the city, steal, kill,
And
do whatever
they're
they
still
wanted.
there. These mercenaries, these armed gangs, still own Libya.
Now, a lot of people have accused me of being involved with Mossad. I think it's well established that I have nothing to do with it. How did you know you were looking at Mossad involvement? How could you tell?
We took a photo of one guy that had his beret on, and
he had a star of Israel
yeah.
on his shoulders, talking to Bernard Levy. He's in front of a helicopter. But we know from what happened to us is because we were the only Americans there that weren't media or CNN or whatever, or we weren't activists. There were some people there, not Americans, but there were some other people there who were trying to anti-war, or they were trying to do business or whatever. We were the only ones who were actually there trying to help the Libyans understand what was happening and stop it. We wanted to stop it. And
we wanted to exploit our business. We wanted to help them stop fighting.
Yeah. So the deputy prime minister, or the deputy foreign minister, excuse me, Khalid Qaim, got to know us. He came over. We knew Sheikh Ali very well. He's the head of all the tribes. All these men know each other, the leaders of Libya. And Sheikh Tantouche, who was Sheikh Khalid Tantouche, was the leading imam. He had a TV show in Libya. When we first arrived there with our fact-finding commission, he was there at the hotel within a half an hour telling us the story of how the NATO had bombed and killed 13 imams trying to establish peace in Libya. So we knew all these people, and they would come to us. We were also on the most watched TV show in Libya a couple times. It was a talk show. What was his name? Dr. Shakir show. There were two people. It was a talk show, and we were on it twice at least, and all Libyans watched that, so they knew us very well.
We said something that was, to them, was very novel. The Libyan people ought to have the right to determine their own government. Can you imagine that?
I mean, you guys were basically celebrities in Libya.
Yeah, that's what happened to us. We were taken to all the events they had. Did lots of demonstrations in the streets supporting their government. In July 1st of 2011, they had 2 million Libyans in the streets supporting their government.
One event.
Never was reported on one time. But what happened to us, the security in Libya noticed us. The high security. It wasn't Abu Zaid Dorda. He was the head. It was one of his, Dr. Aguila. And he would come to us and tell us things. You know, what was happening, what was, you know...
he would question us, why is your government doing this, like on these rockets that everybody's throwing rocks at us? He came one day and he was real angry. He said, what is wrong with your government? You've established this no-fly zone, and now you deliver 20,000 very sophisticated rockets to Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood, Ansar al-Sharia. What's your government doing? We didn't know. But that was the first time we heard the number of 20,000 rockets. And then later on, Claire Lopez, who claims to be retired CIA, but is absolutely still CIA. I don't think
we don't know. That's
retired.
our opinion. That is our opinion.
We don't think anybody ever
clear
retired.
That up.
But anyhow, she was the source of all the information to the civilian committee investigating Benghazi. And then she was the main source of information to the Senate and the congressional investigation on Benghazi. But what she said,
I spoke to her.
Yeah, whenever Joanne was talking to her about she said, "Oh, that can't be. They might have had a few rockets that they got out of Gaddafi's storehouse that were old rockets that came from Russia."
Meaning the Al-Qaeda, ISIS fighters.
Yeah. Whenever Joanne asked her about, well, what about all these rockets that went in there? She said, no, it never happened.
Well, she tried to tell me a number of things. She tried to tell me CIA wasn't in Libya. And I said, I know CIA. I met some CIA people.
How do you know they were CIA?
They told some people that I know very well.
Why would they do that?
Because they threatened his life. He was telling the truth. He was a journalist from France. What's his name?
Mason.
Terry Mason, Voltaire Network. He was trapped in the Rix's Hotel. And I don't know if you remember, there was a lady with short blonde hair. I can't remember her name, if she was CNN or ABC or what she was. He said they carried big knives and wore flak jackets, and he said they got him in a corner, and they got him and they told him.
She did.
The woman did, and she said, if I catch you alone in here, I'm going to cut your heart out and eat it. And he said it was
supposedly a reporter.
Yeah, she was supposedly a reporter. Now, and I trust Terry. Yeah. Had a hit on him by Sarkozy for telling the truth in France. That's why he was over there.
The security of Libya told us all these reporters are spies for your government in Israel and England. Why do you leave them here? Well, because if we don't have them here, then no one will see anything. At least they're reporting on things that are going on in Libya, even if it's only 10% true.
Wow.
And like there was one reporter, he was working for the New York Times, long blonde hair, he was British, and he was sitting on the roof over the coffee shop, and the lights and camera were on, he was up there, and we were standing outside. It was a nice evening. He's up there, and he said, do you know what the best thing that could happen to Libya is for somebody to put a bullet through Gaddafi's head?
But everyone in Libya loved Gaddafi,
Yeah.
you said.
Yeah, Gaddafi was not what anybody, Gaddafi wasn't even the leader of Libya at that time. If you spoke to the Libyan people, they would call him their leader, but that didn't mean he was in charge of the government. He was more of a spiritual leader to them at that time.
Who was in charge of the government?
The government had a prime minister named Mahmoudi Baghdadi, who was
elected.
They had two houses. They had the General Secretariat of the Tribes, which was a house of 200 that represented all the tribes in Libya and all Libyans.
Democratic process within the tribes to get up to the General Secretary.
All Libyans are members of tribes. Then they had the elected House of Representatives. And that was the two houses, plus they had a prime minister.
So people say, oh, Gaddafi was a terrible guy. They couldn't vote. That's absolutely not true. They had a constitution. They voted for both houses. One of them, the tribe, within the tribes. The other one was elected from anybody. Most of those were tribal members also, but two distinct houses.
Now, I know that Gaddafi was not in charge because this is how I know it, and I have it on tape. The fact-finding commission we were with, none of us understood who was leading Libya. We all said, is Gaddafi the leader? How does your government work? And so they took us
because the media outside saying Gaddafi's army, Gaddafi's this, Gaddafi's that. And in Libya, said, no, Gaddafi he's retired from government. He's over here doing the Arab Bank and these other things, you know.
He was the president of the African Union.
Yes.
Right. Not then, though. I think he'd stepped down. He'd finished his term there.
And you've told us about the fact-finding mission before, that some organization got your contact information. But it seems a little bit more clear now that you were very well known throughout Libya. You were the American business people that were there to bring commerce to Libya.
We're a little different because it's just the two of us. We didn't send over.
When we were in Libya during the fighting, they kept asking us, well, what business do you need to do to stay here? And we said, as long as there's blood running in the streets, we're not going to do any business here. Because we had plenty of business, but we need to have them back to some kind of normalcy.
And security for their country. Plus,
the other thing, we had shipped in an entire factory and all the feedstock to put our large-scale enzyme production plant and marketing to be domiciled in Libya.
So feedstock, because it's an organic process that you're using.
You're talking about microbes.
Lots of materials, and we feed the microbes beer.
Wow.
So we've really got a beer factory in there. All the equipment is ceramic lined stainless steel. It's very sophisticated stuff.
Beer is going to save the world.
That
smells like sour beer, but the microbes grow best in that media, you know. Huh. So it's a huge plant. And all the feedstock enough for that plant to operate for a year or more. That was on the water coming into Misrata. I ordered that stuff delivered. We turned the ships loose first week in January of 2011.
We didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's all lost. Anyway, what I was going to tell you about how I know about Gaddafi not being the leader is when the fact-finding commission asked the Libyan representative who was showing us around, he set up a meeting with the Al-Fatah University for us with about 5 professors. The part of the Al-Fatah University that he set us up with was the part that gives PhDs. So these were their top professors. Most all spoke English. There were a couple women. There were 3 or 4 men. And I videotaped this. It's all on videotape. And he explained exactly the role Gaddafi played in Libya, how the Libyan government worked. And he also said, the Western form of democracy will not work in Libya at this point. We are not a country that is ready for that or may never be ready for that. And he talked for a long time about it. He said that Gaddafi sits over here. He's not a leader. He sits over here. He said, we've got a House of Representatives, we've got the Secretariat of the Tribes, the General Secretariat of the Tribes, and we have a Prime Minister. If a person in Libya has a problem, they go to their tribal leaders and say, this is my problem. He said, similar to your town hall meeting. And he said, if they can't solve that, it moves up the chain. It goes to the higher people, the, what are they called, the regional directors of the tribes, and it goes on up until it gets to the General Secretariat. If they can't solve this problem, they have the choice to ask Gaddafi if he'd like to come in and give his opinion. He can choose to or not to. It's up to him. That's the only role he had in Libya.
They said he's more like a spiritual leader. Now, we'd be glad to entrust you with that video.
Yeah, I have the video. I'll give it to you, but the guy speaking.
We should definitely put it out,
sure.
For sure. Yeah. I mean,
you know, the things that we know. And it doesn't behoove us, it doesn't help us to put out any information that's not right. But I can tell you that General Flynn, when he was head of the DIA, confirmed to Congressman Pete Sessions that every single piece of intel we got out of Libya was 100% accurate.
Well, and it sounds from what you're saying like you're obviously very well informed. I mean,
we were there.
We were there a lot.
We're not reading a script. This is our lives. This is what we were there.
I also am in contact, we are in contact with the tribes all the time. And during this time when the DIA was in our house in 2013, and they came in because they said we had to be debriefed because we'd been captured by Al-Qaeda. He was in there a lot, and he was getting actionable intelligence on the ground in Libya about where Al-Qaeda's camps were. We put the Libyan military on the phone with them that was in the desert.
We gave them latitude and longitude of where the Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood leaders spent the night.
How did you know that? Just
because the tribes gave it to us.
We put them on Skype.
And they gave us where the weapons were stored, where their underground bunkers were, where their tanks were stocked, etc.
What they did is put up Google Maps. And they showed us where these things were on Google Maps.
And we did this to the DIA agent. We turned the general over, and he gave this man. He wouldn't let his face be seen by the Libyans, probably because he'd been there. But the general gave him details. It was one time when we gave him the information on the tanks, 42 tanks in the
El Sadada.
El Sadada area. It's kind of a raised area in the central part of Libya. And so he came back about a week or 10 days later, and he said, well, you know, we've investigated that, and we saw no tanks. And the general said, what the hell do you think? We've got them lined up there in the desert with big red crosses on top of them. There's one underneath this tree. There's one in this garage. And he said, you go into this portal, and you turn left, and here's a garage. There's one in there. It's under this tree. You know, this is the kind of garbage that they were trying to sell us about the information. You know, well, our information was correct.
The other thing they did when we started talking about the tribes, they said, well, we don't believe you know the tribes. They didn't believe that.
Who said that? DIA?
The DIA. And he said, well, I'm going to come back next week with questions.
A test.
A test. He said, we have questions that we want, if you know the tribes, they can answer these questions. They couldn't answer the questions, but they wanted the tribes to answer them. We had a long discussion with them. We didn't know if that was a good idea for them to answer these questions.
Trying to get information?
Yeah, they said, no. They said, we want to answer them. So he brought back these 11 questions that he wrote in his own hand, or he had written in his own hand. You know, what are the biggest tribes? Where do they live? What is their affiliation? What are their names? What are the names of the leading tribes? It goes on. Nobody in the world knows this information. You couldn't even go into Libya and find out this information. It's not something that, unless you're born in Libya,
right,
you might know.
Even at that, you wouldn't know about this tribe if you're not a member of it. I mean, a tribal society, they're kind of together, but they're really separate.
Anyway, the tribes, the leaders of all the big leaders were in Egypt at that time. He left those questions with us, and he said, I'll give you, what did he give us, 2 weeks?
Week or 10 days.
A week or 10 days. We had it in 24 hours.
Wow.
Said, come back.
We said, come back. He said, you're done? I said, yeah. So he brought it back, and he had all the answers. So and they also, not only did they answer the questions, but they gave us a map of where all the tribes are in Libya.
So this is clearly why General Flynn said you guys had the best intelligence that anyone had gathered in Libya, because you didn't go in there as military people threatening to cut people's hearts out and eat them. You went in there to do business with the Libyan people and help restore their country.
Right,
we were
that's
trying
exactly
to
right.
find all the information we got out of Libya after we got back. We were trying to find a good, God-fearing politician.
In the U.S.?
Yeah, in the U.S. So we could give them the information. We could give them the information and show them how wrong-footed our government was in Libya. here we were supporting all the bad guys. And if a politician saw that, for sure, they would say, hey, wait a minute, this is wrong, we need to stop this.
One of the things the tribes did after Chris Stevens was killed was they contacted us and they said, we have an offer for the United States. And they wrote out this big, we have this offer. And this is why they made us, we said we have no standing with the United States, so they made us their official spokesperson.
Wow.
This offer was that if they would cleanse their country of all this radical Islam stuff and the mercenaries, whatever they were.
If the United States would cleanse Libya of radical.
No.
The Libyan tribes would cleanse it if the United States would stop supporting them in their country.
Said stop supporting.
Just stop sending
supplying
weapons, stop doing this, and we will cleanse our country. And then we will go country to country, joining hands with all the tribes all over that region, everywhere that
all
they're.
The world will eliminate the radicals.
We will eliminate them worldwide. We will be happy to do that. That went up to Washington, D.C., and we never heard anything from it ever again.
President's office.
Who was the president at the time?
Obama.
We also sent it to Trump afterwards.
And nothing from Trump.
Nothing.
No.
The Libyan tribes.
I'm not sure
if
Trump. We don't know if
reached?
I don't know if it ever reached him, but it went through General Flynn's office before, so I know
Trump,
Obama got it.
The Libyan tribes were the first foreign entity to back Trump officially. And we gave that information to, what was that little skinny gal's name? Was it one of his, Christina?
Yeah, I can't remember her name right now. She's from Texas, but I don't remember her name. But
so we got it to her. She said, "Oh, I'll make sure Trump gets it."
I don't think he ever got it.
Who knows?
It's tough to get
You
through
had
the
some
gatekeepers.
interaction with Louis Gohmert, no?
Well, with Louis Gohmert, the problem with him is we sent him all this information. And the best thing that happened was his aides contacted us back. But Trey Gowdy, Louis Gohmert, Darrell Issa, all these speechifiers got all the information about what really happened in Benghazi. None of them ever wanted to interview us or any of the eyewitnesses in Libya that knew exactly what happened in Benghazi. No person in Libya has ever been interviewed that was not a U.S. employee. So the truth about what happened in Benghazi, they don't want to know.
And so where were you guys on
We were
September
back
11th?
We were here in the United.
Yeah, we were.
Well, it was
back in the United States.
2012,
It
right?
was 2012. We were back here, but the tribes were there with their eyewitnesses.
About 2 weeks before that, they called us and they said, you know, your government needs to be put on alert because your property, your land, is going to be attacked.
So they knew
on the
beforehand.
Yeah, they get the intel on the
ground. They
ground.
have spies in every single militia.
So when did you
Libya.
guys learn that there was going to be an attack on the CIA?
Couple months before it happened.
And who did you tell?
Every congressman we could call.
And they did nothing.
Michelle Bachmann's office, for example.
And
Nobody did anything.
Is there records of those communications?
They tried to deny it because when I told Corsi and some other people that Michelle Bachmann and some of these other people had known, they tried, well, I don't think you ever gave us that information. You know, they backpedaled. But for sure I gave it to them because
So, I mean, it must be an email that you sent, right?
I spoke to them on the phone.
Yeah. She got through their gatekeeper.
The emails don't go through.
No.
It's very difficult.
You have to have a special release for an email to even go in. We know that because when we were delivering all these photos we had,
this was from Sarman. This is a whole another story where they bombed a family.
But Dennis Kucinich, his aide that we got to know real well, he said, I'm going to open up a release for you all to send these photos to all the congressmen and senators
because they
were voting on funding, on continuing funding of the war in Libya.
We were in Libya.
And Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul gave a very passionate speech, and the funding didn't happen. But that was basically because of all the photos of all the stuff that was going on in Libya.
That was happening in Libya.
But we know that they have to open up their emails, otherwise they never go anyplace. But you know, Trey Gowdy, his main money grabbers saw us at the John Birch seminar that we gave, and they said, oh man, Trey Gowdy's going to want to talk to you all. This is information. He's really right in the middle of Benghazi.
Right.
They called us back a couple of days later. How'd your talk go with Trey Gowdy? He never called us. What? Wait a minute. We'll call him again. They called the next day, and they said, well, did he call you back? No. He promised he'd call you. they said, well, do you think you could call his office? So Joanne called his office. She said, yeah, we know who you are. We got a file on you.
We have a file on you. We'll call you.
If we need to call you, we'll call you.
Wow.
So let me go back just for a
Sure.
second. When we were given all this intel, there was a lot of intel we gave out. One of the first big camps, when we gave out that camp was moved in 3 days.
It was
They
a huge
picked up and moved
center
that camp.
that the CIA had built in the Derna area to train their terrorists.
Ooh.
And the tribes
An
called us.
Al-Qaeda camp. You're
Yeah,
saying.
the tribes called us back. They said, you gave that information. They're moving the camp now. He
3
said
days.
3 days later.
Huge camp had been established.
said they're
going to
selling-
process like 100,000 terrorists through there.
They're getting rid of their guns. They're moving out in the desert. And they planted 2 guys to drive with them out in the desert to try to tell everybody where they were going, but we didn't have anybody to tell.
One of the generals was giving us point by point, here's where they are, here's the caravan, here's how many cars are in the caravan. This is all the leaders of Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood are driving all the way across Libya going into the southern part of Algeria.
And haven't we heard testimony from military veterans who say they were training terrorists?
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. But we have one really interesting one that you will find interesting. We got a call one night, and they said there is a ship out in the Mediterranean. The Muslim Brotherhood are near Tobruk in a port.
On the northeast port.
Corner of Libya, and they're waiting for the ship to come in because it's like a fishing vessel, but it's not.
It's a big shipping vessel disguised. No, it's a big freighter disguised as a shipping vessel.
Yeah, it's full of weapons of mass destruction. And they're going to offload them on this port, and they're going to carry them into Egypt, across Egypt into the Gaza to attack Israel with these.
Whoa.
They've got this huge amount of weapons. See, this is another reason that they were happy to get
Why
Libya.
is Mossad helping them attack?
But this would not be the Mossad. This is Muslim Brotherhood.
I see.
This is not Mossad.
And the Libyans said, you know, we don't care for those people, but we've had too much death and
Yeah,
destruction.
what Musa said, he said, we want you to know because there's too much blood already. We don't have any great love for Israel, but we don't want any more people killed. And so he said, call somebody. This was Saturday night. Who am I going to call? I tried to call Eric Maddox, who
Trey
was
Gravity.
yeah, there you go.
not
Eric
answering.
Maddox didn't have his burner phone on, the guy from the DIA, so I called the guy, Tim Hunt, who's the guy in Oakland who's released to the terrorist task force, the FBI.
He's a detective, Oakland detective, on loan to the
and he
terrorist
said,
task force for 10 years.
JTTF kind of thing.
yeah. He said to me, he said, yeah, I've been all over the world. I have contacts in the Mossad that could do something about this. I said, well, call him. He said, I can't. I have to go way upstream to get permission. This is intelligence. I can't give
Just
intelligence.
act on it.
He said, I'm not allowed.
He said, I'm not allowed it without permission. I said, okay, it's my intelligence. You give me the Mossad guy's name, I'll call him. That's what I told him. And
That's great.
He said, I'll get back to you. So about 2 hours later, I got a smiley face. And he called me, he says, they got the ship.
Wow.
They got it. And we know they got it because, well, first of all, our tribes calls back, said the Muslim Brotherhood's going crazy.
They're going nuts.
They're trying to get a boat to find out what happened to the ship. Ship doesn't
Ship
answer them anymore. It disappeared.
So they're sending little boats out there. They can't find it. It's gone.
It's gone. So
You saved lives.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of lives. Anyway, the Israelis did get the ship, and they actually, it was in the news. They said it was a ship
Coming from Greece.
coming from Greece to Syria or something. They didn't. The story was written incorrectly. We knew the story.
They skewed the information.
They didn't want to get
Yeah.
people worked
Yeah.
up. Or
But
whatever.
evidently that wasn't important enough for them to stop attacking us.
Wow.
We did
Grace.
something good. Could you leave
Grace.
us alone now? Anyway, they told us the night Chris Stevens was killed that he was being attacked. They called that night and said, your ambassador's going to be killed tonight. You need to do something about it.
No.
They
said that the safe house is being attacked.
Yeah.
And that they're weaponized drones flying above it, and they need to repel the attackers.
Weaponized drones. That sounds pretty sophisticated.
They're always
Yes, sir.
over there.
But they know. Believe me. They're paying attention. They knew it.
They knew it.
And
I remember this real well because I thought, he said, you need to call your people right away. My people.
They can stop
Right,
the
you know,
attack.
they can stop the attack. 2 hours later, he said, okay, they're in this, the people who killed him and your ambassador in this hospital, and they're all there together, and you can get them at this hospital. He gave us the street, gave us everything. He said, they're here at this hospital. Hurry, hurry, my sister, tell your people. That's what he, and I didn't have anybody to tell. 2 hours later, he called, he said, okay, they've shaved off their beards. They have on Western clothes, and they're driving in these cars to Egypt, to Cairo. He said, tell your people.
A black SUV, a white SUV, a black, and they're going to Egypt, headed to Cairo.
Now, see, this is why
that's a long road.
This is why General Flynn said, these people can pick up their phone and get actionable intelligence anywhere in North Africa at any time. We've gotten intelligence from the Syrian tribes, from the Egyptian tribes, from the Libyan tribes.
I mean, you two should be treated like ambassadors. You should
be
given a protection
Pete Sessions said. He said, why aren't they taking care of you if you have this information?
Pete Sessions asked General Flynn, why have you not made these two people your best friend instead of attacking them?
But was Flynn attacking you?
Yeah, he's
I think
top of the pecking order.
We don't know. Oh, this is what I think.
He knew everything about us.
This is my opinion, and that is he was not the top. The top guy was Obama.
Yeah.
And I know that our information had to go to Obama because the DIA guy told us that.
Yeah.
And he said it stops there.
So Flynn very likely was bringing your information to Obama, and Obama wasn't acting on it.
Okay.
This is possibly part of the reason why Flynn was targeted and eliminated.
The DIA agent.
That's right.
The DIA agent reporting directly to Flynn was in our home at least 14 times. So did Flynn know
When was
about
this?
it?
No,
What was
this was
year?
2013.
So still Obama and Flynn's the director of the DIA.
Yes.
Now, Flynn left after only a couple of years because we were told by somebody very close to him that he was told, if you'll go back and restructure the DIA in this way, then we will make the DIA the most important entity of all of them, and you'll absolutely be walking in tall cotton. And
For people not from Texas, walking in tall cotton is good?
Yeah.
Okay.
The tall cotton is long staple and is much better cotton.
Got it.
The short stuff near the ground is where it's real windy and it blows up. You know, the long staple will blow out of the hull, and the
He'd
short
be in a
cotton
good position.
Yes.
And so after about 18 months, he was completely disillusioned because everything they had promised him was not true. They were doing exactly the opposite. They were trying to destroy, as you know, the military and all that
this
stuff.
Is what
that
we
was
were,
the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, this is what we were told. I'll make that real clear.
Right.
That's not something we can
But we
prove.
do know that Michael Flynn went on RT and said that he felt that the creation of ISIS was deliberate. And so that's consistent with you telling him, hey, you can attack him and stop him here, and then Obama not doing anything. Because why would you not act on this intelligence?
He actually warned him and told him to leave.
Right.
When they were outed.
Now, have you ever spoken to Chris Peranto or any of the people that survived the Ben?
No, we have not.
We really know more about what went on inside that safe house than they do. They were latecomers to that party.
They were there to protect.
Right.
You know.
The man that served dinner to Chris Stevens and the Turkish ambassador was a Sudanese attorney, a spy for the tribes. They didn't. Chris Stevens and nobody there knew he spoke English. He served dinner to Chris Stevens and the Turkish ambassador. He heard all that they talked about.
Wow.
And the discussion was, Chris Stevens was asking the Turkish ambassador to implore Erdogan to get all these missiles back at whatever cost, because the United States was receiving a lot of flack from countries all over the world because these were a clear and present danger to those countries. This was Chad, Niger, Sudan, Algeria, other countries also. They said Libya was like a sieve. Also, weapons were coming out of there like crazy all over, and it was a danger to those countries.
One of those missiles shot down a U.S. helicopter. And there's been a report on the internet about in Afghanistan.
And then Extortion 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was not armed correctly, and they got the serial number off of it. This is how they tracked it back.
Now, we don't know that it wasn't armed properly because I was told by a Lieutenant Colonel so-and-so that that doesn't work, they're always armed. Well, this one did not blow up. It brought the helicopter down, but it didn't blow up, and that's how they got the serial number, and that's one that had been delivered into Libya.
Wow.
And then coincidental to that, a general from the Pentagon called the Northrop Grumman officials to a meeting in Florida. And he called them on the carpet, and he said, what in the hell are y'all doing delivering these 20,000 rockets to Libya and then letting them disappear? And they said, wait a minute, General. We delivered 50,000 of these rockets to the Secretary of State's office in 2010. This is
Secretary
before
of State in 2010
Hillary
being?
Clinton.
Hillary Clinton.
So the Secretary of State, not the military, bought 50,000 of these rockets. And
They're
we know about,
shoulder-mounted rockets.
We know about that because that's the rockets the security office in Libya talked to us about. And then we got validation from a man that was in that meeting. And the number is 50,000. He said those are the most sophisticated rockets they build. They're $1,100,000 a unit.
Wow.
They could take a 12-year-old child in a couple hours. He could hit a plane at long distance within a foot.
And take down a commercial
Yeah.
jetliner
So,
Exactly.
or a
50
Russian helicopter.
Yeah,
Yep.
50,000 of those we think
Nobody
will take
knows where
down
they are.
every military aircraft in the world and a whole bunch of civilian
They could have
aircraft.
returned
too.
here to the United States and be
Yeah.
a threat to civilian aircraft.
Absolutely.
And so,
Nobody knows where they are.
No,
Nobody knows.
knows. And would you say that we have sufficient proof to believe that? Because we got it from security in Libya, now validated by the manufacturer. Now, we don't know the names. We don't know the names of those rockets. They could be JDAM, Pop Rawash,
Stinger, who knows?
Stinger, whatever. We don't know. We're not military people.
But when you say you have verification from the manufacturer, what do you mean?
Those emails that came from the man that was in the meeting at Northrop
We were
Grumman.
contacted.
Isn't he risking?
We haven't passed out his name.
We
but,
haven't passed out his name, but he told us, he said, you know, I watched your DVD and I was so shocked. I told my wife, finally, somebody's telling the truth. He said, you are wrong, though. There weren't 20,000 rockets. There were 50,000 rockets. 20,000 may have gone to Libya, but 50,000 are how many were sold to the State Department.
Delivered to him in 2010.
He said, and the Pentagon showed up down here and called all the heads of Northrop Grumman on the carpet and said, who bought these rockets and how did they get down there? And he said,
And then how'd they disappear?
how'd they disappear? He said, we told them we just got an order and shipped them out. That's it.
Wow.
And those are we were told by people that know that the delivery time is at least 10 months. And on that number may be longer than that. So the order was placed long time before Arab Spring was ever a thought.
Wow. Wow. I mean,
Makes you not want to get on a plane, doesn't it?
it makes me want to know what Hillary Clinton was emailing.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, they blew up Libya because of the Arab Bank, and recently some emails have been released saying that it was going to be done
The reason
because
Libya was blown up and Gaddafi killed was because
of the
gold-backed dinar,
African
dinar.
bank.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've speculated about that, and other people have as well for some time.
We've been saying
that
since 2011.
Is he challenging the petrodollar?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly right.
I mean, it's very credible and believable how you tell it, but it's an unbelievable story. I think maybe we should pause now and come back in the future. Obviously, there's more to tell. You both have been so forthcoming with this information. I have to thank you, and I want to remind our viewers that they should be going to LibyanWarTheTruth.com, purchase the DVD, and help Joanne and Jimmy.
And please keep us in your prayers.
Absolutely.
We're attacked all the time. We have no protection at all under the whistleblowers laws because we're not government employees, never have been. All the intelligence is raw. It belongs to us. We can give it to anybody we want, but that puts us out here on the end of a little tiny limb, and we've got all these guerrillas chopping on that limb. So we've had a lot of divine intervention that has protected us and really pulled us out of the jaws of death many, many times. And so please keep us in your prayers. It's very important.
Absolutely. And we will have more conversations in the future. I want to thank you both for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this,
God
Jason.
bless you. We appreciate it.
We really appreciate it. And I want to talk to you in the future about the Russian ambassador and some other things that happened when we were there.
There's so much more to talk about.
There is, tons.
Thank you both. And thanks everyone for watching.